everybody! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. Today we're making donuts. Yep, these tasty little treats. These are low-cal, obviously, because you're not going to want to eat them. But they make really fun little toys or keychains. This one's hanging in the rearview mirror of my car, but you can put them on your backpacks or your purses or anywhere else you might want to hang a little sweet treat. They don't take up very much yarn. They just need a little bit of stuffing, so they're a fun little project. You can whip up a baker's dozen of them before you have time to say, let's go to the donut shop. But before I show you how to do this, I just wanted to let everybody who's new to the show know that we have a website. Links in the description box down below. And it's a great place to find tips, tricks, some handy little charts. I have a blog going there. And we often put up free patterns on the Pattern Workshop site. So if you're still new to learning how to read patterns, it's a great place to start because a lot of those patterns have a tutorial that goes with them. So make sure you check that out. So without further ado, let's grab our hooks and yarn, head on over to the craft table, and stitch up a whole pile of donuts. Our little donut is a scrap project, so you don't need very much yarn. You need a donut color, and you need a frosting color, and then you need a little bit of some color for sprinkles. So today I've got sort of a gingerbread color, nice sort of rich gingerbread chocolatey color for my donut, some pink for the frosting, and then I've got a little bit of some scrap yarns for the sprinkles. You're going to need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle. I've got a 4.25 millimeter hook, or a G6, and I'm going to possibly turn mine into a keychain, so I went and found a ball chain. You can just have it as a toy, you don't have to put it on a keychain. And then you need a little bit of stuffing. So I've got some chopped up t-shirt, and that's all you need, and we can get started on our little donuts. We're going to begin with a slip knot. Make sure it's not too tight or too loose. And then we're going to chain 10. Once you've got a chained length of 10, be careful not to twist it. Bring the first chain up to your hook, slip your hook through it, and we're going to begin row 1 immediately with single crochet. So we're not slip stitching, we're going to start single crochet. You're going to single crochet twice into that first chain, and then once into the next chain, and that's the pattern all the way around. You're going to work 2 single crochet into the next chain, 1 single crochet into the next, 2, 1, 2, 1. All the way around, you'll have 15 stitches at the end of row 1. You should have something that looks like this. Make sure you give your stitches a count. You should have 15 all the way around. We're working in the round, so we're not joining our rows with a slip stitch. We're just going to keep going. Row 2, we're still increasing. You're going to work 2 single crochet into the next stitch, and then a single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, and then single crochet into each of the next 2. Repeat that pattern all the way around. You'll have 20 stitches at the end of row 2. Double count your stitches, make sure you have 20. We're at the end of row 2. We are continuing into row 3. We're still increasing. We're going to work 2 single crochet into the first stitch of row 3, and then single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's your pattern for row 3. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Repeat that pattern all the way around, and you'll have 25 stitches at the end of row 3. That's the end of row 3. You should have 25 stitches, and you can tell you're back at the beginning because there's this little sort of bump where row 1 turns into row 2, so that's an easy way to see that that sort of background at the beginning. You can also put a stitch marker or a safety pin in there if you have trouble seeing that. But now you're going to work rows 4, 5, and 6 just by single crocheting into every stitch around. So you're going to work 3 straight rows of just single crochet, no more increasing, and you'll have 25 stitches at the end of every row. We're at the end of row 6, so there's the little bump. So that's my little start point. I can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 complete rows. I've worked my last stitch roughly in line with that start point, and now we can start row 7. We're going to begin to decrease. So you should have something that looks kind of like a little open bowl, or a bowl with a bottom hole. And now we're going to decrease. So the first 2 stitches of row 7, we're going to single crochet them together. So you pick up a loop in the first stitch, pick up a loop in the next stitch, and then wrap and crochet them all together. So single crochet 2 together, and then single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So just like normal. And then we repeat. Single crochet the next 2 stitches together, and then single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. You're going to work that pattern around, and you'll go from 25 stitches down to 20. Alright, at the end of row 7 we're down to 20 stitches. We're going to decrease again. At the beginning of row 8 we're going to single crochet the first 2 stitches together, and then single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet into each of the next 2. Repeat around, you'll be down to 15 stitches. Alright, one more row of decreasing. So for row 9, we're going to single crochet the first 2 stitches together, single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet the next 2 stitches together, single crochet into the next stitch. Repeat all the way around. So you've got 10 stitches at the end of row 9. At the end of row 9, you should have something that looks like this, sort of like a ball with 2 large gaps on either side. That's it. We're going to slip stitch to close off row 9. So just slip stitch into the next stitch. Grab your scissors and cut yourself a long tail. Fasten off. Alright, and now we're going to turn this thing into a donut and stuff it as we go. So grab your stuffing and your yarn needle and let's get started. We're going to sew and stuff our donut as we go. So you're going to thread up the tail that you left over on your yarn needle. And it helps if you can look through so that you sort of are looking, you've got both your circles lined up. Take your needle, drop it right through all the way out the other side, and find that little spot that's our start point. You see where that little bump happens? That's where you're going to work your first stitch. So right through, you can either come out from underneath that. Actually, let's do that because it's probably easier. And then squeeze, pull and squeeze. So what you're going to do is you're going to push your 2 edges together and sew around the insides. Now it's probably easier to see when it's in your own hands, but you just want to pick up the edge stitches of both sides and just stitch them shut all the way around. But we're only going to do a couple at a time because we also want to stuff our donut as we go. So work a couple stitches, and then open it up, get your finger in there, and you can feel where you've already sewn those stitches together. You're going to take a little bit of stuffing, whatever stuffing you've got. You can even use leftover yarn. This is such a tiny little project. And just stuff it into the inside of your donut. It's like a little miniature inner tube here, so that it sits right behind the two places that you just stitched. If you think you've got room for a little bit more, put in a little bit more. And you're going to work a couple stitches, so you're going to stitch a couple of those inside stitches together, pause, stick a little bit more stuffing in, work a couple more stitches, pause, put in some more stuffing, and it'll get easier as you get all the way around. But once you get close to the end, put in the last amount of stuffing you think you need and work your last couple of stitches. And I'm going to work my way around nice and slowly here. Once you've put in some of that stuffing, thread your needle back up again. Make sure you pair your edges together. Pick up the next couple sets of stitches. So here's one on the sort of the underside. I'm going to pick up the very next one along the inside. There it is right there. Needle goes back down through the center. There's my next stitch. And I pick up the next stitch. And then I'm going to pause and put in some stuffing. And I'll see you near the end of stuffing your donut. Once you've finished stuffing and sewing through every little set of stitches all around the inside, and if you've overdone some stitches or worked a couple of them twice, that's fine. It doesn't matter. What you want is a hole in the center of your donut. And then take what's left of your yarn and you can poke it all the way through to an outside space where it's sort of easier to see. And then you're just going to weave it in back and forth underneath some of these stitches. So if you're using acrylic yarn like I am, it's not terribly stitchy. I mean, it's not terribly slippery. And you can just weave it through some of these stitches. Don't pull too tightly. And then skip over a piece of a stitch, pick up back through the same set, maybe overshoot one or two. Just weave it back and forth a few times, and then it will not unravel. And then you're just going to put your needle into the rest of your donut and just bury the rest of your yarn in your donut, and you can just sort of treat it like stuffing. So just wiggle it back and forth a few times and it'll disappear. And that is the main part of the donut done. So now you have a little donut. We're going to make its frosting, and that's this pretty yummy pink piece on top of it here. So you want to get your frosting color handy, and you want to grab your hook again. We're going to work our frosting much like we did our donut. So we're going to start with a slip knot. Make sure it's not too tight or too loose, and chain 10. Don't twist it. Put your hook through your first chain that you made, and you're going to single crochet 2 times into that stitch. We're going to repeat row 1 as we did for the donut. So you're going to work a single crochet into the next chain, 2 single crochets into the next chain, a single crochet into the next chain. So your pattern is 2 1 2 1 all the way around, and you'll have 15 stitches at the end of row 1, just like we did with the donut. At the end of row 1, you should have 15 stitches, just like we did at the end of row 1 of the donut. Row 2 is the same as the donut as well. You're going to work 2 single crochet into the first stitch of row 2, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and repeat. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, work that around until you have 20 stitches. Row 3, same as the donut, work 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, and repeat 2 into the next stitch, 1 into each of the next 3, all the way around until you have 25 stitches. Alright, the first 3 rows of our frosting are exactly the same as the first 3 rows of our donut. So you should have 25 stitches, and now we're going to make those pretty little drips that look like the frosting is sort of dripping down the side of our little cakey donut. Here we go. We're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, into this stitch here. So the very next stitch, we're going to work 3 stitches. We're going to half double crochet, double crochet, and half double crochet again. So that all 3 of those are worked into the same stitch. Single crochet into the next stitch, and slip stitch into the next stitch. And there is a little drippy petal. We're going to repeat. We begin with a slip stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, work half double crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, all into that same stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, and slip stitch. And that's your pattern. You're going to work that little repeating pattern all the way around until you have 5 little frosting drips. Begin with a slip stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, work that half double, double, half double stitch combination into the same stitch, single crochet, and end with a slip stitch. And I'll see you back at the beginning. Once you're back to the beginning, you should end with a slip stitch, and that should be right next to the slip stitch you made to start that row. And that's it. You should have 5 little petals of frosting. Now you're going to cut yourself a long bit of tail, because you're going to want to be able to sew all the way around the outside of your frosting and around the middle, the inside middle of your frosting. So cut yourself off maybe 100 centimeters, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5 feet, something like that, and fasten off. And you can put your hook down. Before we put our frosting on our donut, we want to decorate it. So now we're going to put on these pretty little frostings, and this is where you bring in all of those extra colors of yarn that you've got. So grab any color to start. I think I'll begin with my purple here. I don't have very much, but you want to cut a length so that you don't leave yourself short. Maybe 90 centimeters, somewhere in that area. Probably won't need that much, but you don't ever want to run out. And you look at the front, look at the back. You see the difference between the back? The back's all got that sort of little bumpity bump sort of look to it. The front seems nice and smooth. Keep your long sewing tail out of the way. Randomly, anywhere you like, bring your yarn through through your frosting from the back to the front. And we're going to do my little trick where you don't bring it all the way through, you keep a little bit back for knotting later. And then you're just going to randomly create little short straight stitches going every different direction all over the top of your frosting. Remember not to crowd them too close together because you want to leave space to put in another color. But you're just going to randomly work these little short straight stitches all across, all around the top. I think I'll put one way up here of your frosting. Get all the way around, come back, and then we'll knot those two ends together, and then you can start all over again with another frosting color. Alright, that's all the purple sprinkles I'm going to put on my frosting for now. When you flip it over, it should look kind of crazy like this. You can snip your yarn or tie that little knot first. Don't tie too tight, and don't pull your stitches too tight because you don't want to warp your frosting. That sounds funny. Snip off any of the excess, and don't worry about weaving it in because it's all just going to get buried when we sew down our frosting anyway. So that's it for the purple part of my frosting. I think now I'm going to put on some yellow frosting, or sprinkles I should say. Sprinkles on my frosting. And we're going to do the same thing. So you can start in sort of the same place. Bring it from the back through to the front, hold back a little bit for knotting purposes, and just go to town, adding sprinkles to your frosting. I settled on 3 different sprinkles colors, so I did purple, yellow, and red, and I think that looks like enough sprinkles on the top of my frosting. That's what the underside looks like. I've tucked a few of my little tails in underneath some of my other stitches just to keep them kind of out of the way. And now we can sew them on to our donut. So you pick up your donut, take a good look at it, squish it a little bit, make sure all that stuffing sits in a nice donut-y form, and decide which side you like better as the showing side. So whatever side is going to show is the side you're not going to put the frosting on. It'll probably look fairly even all the way around, but I think I'm going to take this side to put my frosting on. So you set your frosting on top of your donut, and you want to line up the holes, obviously. If you feel you need to pin it down, you can do that, or you can just kind of keep your thumb in it as you sew all the way around. So you're going to thread up that long tail you left yourself. And the first thing we're going to do is sew the frosting around the outside edge. So you want to keep those circles or those holes aligned and just kind of press your frosting down over top of your donut, and you're going to pick up a piece of a stitch from your donut and a piece of the edge of your frosting, and then make sure you haven't knocked it out of alignment. It's kind of easy to hold it if you put your thumb all the way through everything. Just press down your frosting. It'll pretty much stick where you put it. Pick up another piece of a stitch on the donut and the edge stitch of your frosting. And there you go. That is all you have to do to sew your frosting down onto your donut. Just work yourself all the way around. Make sure you try to get every single stitch of your frosting, because that will ensure that it won't come off. So especially if you're making this as a toy for some little person, you want to make sure there aren't any gaps so the frosting won't lift. So work your way all the way around the outside, and then we'll do the inside. Once you've sewn down your frosting all the way around the outside edge, it's time to do the inside edge. So you should still have some tail left over. You're just going to poke it through the donut, right through to the inside edge. You can even pick up your first stitch there if you want to. And this part does not have to be fancy. What you want to do is get your frosting to sort of pull down into the center of your donut. So you're going to bring your yarn up through a stitch. So see, here's your inside, the inside of those chains. So they grab the inside of it. Put your hook all the way through the hole. And then you're going to grab a piece of the donut somewhere on the inside of the hole. So somewhere on the inside of the hole, come back up through the next piece of stitching along the inside of your frosting. Pull tight. Drop that needle all the way back through the hole. That'll be the next one there. So I'm going to pick up a piece on the inside of the donut here. There we go. Pull tight. Drop it down. This will be my, just show you here. This will be my next stitch here. So I'm going to pick up some inside of the donut, pick up the stitch, pull tight, and that's what you're going to do all the way around the inside. You should have about 10 stitches, but if you work 9, work 11, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure that the inside of your frosting is tacked down nice and tight down the inside of the middle of your donut, because you want it to look like the frosting actually drizzled all the way down the outside and sort of through the middle of the hole. So go ahead, work away at that, and I'll see you at the end. Once you've worked your last stitch, you might have something that looks like this. See how it's all sort of sewn down through the middle? Doesn't have to be super fancy, because what you get is the idea of this frosting, sort of dripping down the inside. So you can take your yarn, push it through your donut to the outside edge of your frosting, and we're going to do like we did for the donut. You're just going to weave it back and forth through some of these stitches in the frosting to secure your tail. So make sure you go underneath your sprinkles, because you don't want to accidentally cover them up. And then work your way back through the same stitches. Do it a couple times, and then you can, if you have a lot of yarn left over like me, you can sort of snip some of it, because you don't need all of this. But you can stick it into the body of your donut. There you go. I'll snip off a little bit. And then I'm just going to weave the rest of it into the donut. So it's going to act, again, like a little bit of stuffing. And there you go. Your frosting is down on your donut, and now you have a solid little donut toy. If you're going to stop it at being a toy, you're finished. If you want to add a keychain, then you can do what I'm doing. I like these little ball chains because these are sort of easy to maneuver. I like to find a stitch, put my hook, or I should say my needle, right through the post of it. That's another reason I like these large loop-eyed needles. I can thread up a little bit of my ball chain in it. Let's see if I can get this so you can see what I'm doing. There's a little bit of the ball chain. I'll just gently pull it through. There we go. And ball chains are pretty gentle. They're not going to, and if you're using sort of a 4-ply worsted weight yarn like I am, then you're not going to have to worry about this sawing back and forth on that stitch. But there you go. There's a keychain donut. Donuts! My favorite low-cal treat. That's it for this week, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again soon on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye!